There is nothing finer than a well-placed F-bomb.
Do you ever wonder if you're making an impact with your words? Today's guest is Darcy Webb, who will show you that your voice is powerful. You just don't know how to use it yet.
More feared than death, spiders, and heights. 77% of adults fear public speaking, making it the single most common phobia in the world. Fear of public speaking cuts your wages by 10% and stalls your career advancement.
So what do the people who are not in that 77% know that you don't?
The single biggest mistake that people make is thinking that casual, sloppy speech is authentic. When we release the anal sphincter, then we are a lot more free to speak. It's not about you, it's about what you can give your listener. There is one thing that really relieves the tension I'm going to tell you about.
For Harvard Magazine Business Review, 75% of managers consider public speaking to be a key leadership skill, yet only 30% of people feel prepared to teach it. More feared than death, spiders, and heights. 77% of adults fear public speaking, making it the single most common phobia in the world. Only 7% of what you communicate actually comes from your words. 38% is your voice. 55% is your body language. Fear of public speaking cuts your wages by 10% and stalls your career advancement. Only 8% of people with this fear ever seek help, despite proven solutions existing. That's where Darcy Webb comes in. For 35 plus years, she has coached performers, corporate executives, other professionals to include psychologists, doctors, Broadway performers, and an astronaut? We'll get back to that later. She's a former associate professor of voice and speech at the University of Arts, Philadelphia for 20 years. And one thing that's fascinated me about your career the most is that you coached TED Talk speakers. And I love a good TED Talk. Let's start and let's talk about that. Tell me about that.
Okay. Why do TED speakers fascinate you? I'm curious to know.
People from all over the world listen to them, and I'm sure business owners show them to their employees about why a certain topic's important. So I just think of them as the most important speeches that you can listen to, right? So I like them.
Okay. I think it's good that you like them. Sometimes I like them. Sometimes I think they're the most boring things on the planet. I have coached TED speakers before, and coaching TED speakers is really no different than coaching a corporate executive or a college professor or, somebody who's a public speaker. It really comes down to the message that you are delivering. The message that you are delivering, even the message that you deliver every time you do a podcast, Chris, is a gift. It's not about you. As you've made clear to me about talking to me, it's about what you can give your listener. That's always what I'm teaching and preaching and coaching about. And that's true for TED speakers and anybody else. And it's no different coaching a TED speaker than it is teaching a college student. I want to talk about that statistic. That 7% of a message is about the words, and 55% is about the facial expression.
It's about your body language.
Right, your body language. That's actually not true. And the guy who came up with this his last name is Mehrabian, and he is a professor emeritus at UCLA. And he has spent years trying to get people clear on what he meant. That is true in some instances, but only when the words conflict with the feeling. Here's a perfect example. If my husband says to me, if I'm annoyed with my husband, and he says to me, are you okay? Are you all right? And I say, I'm fine. So we know that just from my facial expression, the tone of my voice, those things belie my actual words. I'm not fine. I'm mad, right? So that's what he's talking about. It's about emotion. It's about feeling. It's about when your words conflict with what you really mean. That only happens on stage and in real life. But when we're talking about, a presentation that a public speaker would make or a corporate speaker or a college professor, those words are true. those words tend to be true. And I always teach people to mean what you say. Unless, of course, it's an actor on stage and I'm teaching them to not mean what they say. Like, I'm fine.
At that point, you're embodying a whole nother person and trying to become somebody else on purpose.
That's right.
So what are the fundamentals that you teach?
The fundamentals of voice and speech are body alignment. Some people call it posture. I don't like to call it posture because that's very stiff and very tense. But body alignment and breath and articulation, clarity in your speech, and to mean what you say. Those are the fundamentals of what I teach. I've taught college sophomores who are actors and musical theater majors for an entire year. They go through an entire year of learning how to do this. I've also taught public speakers in master classes, but the best way to teach a public speaker is one-on-one. So oftentimes I'm with them for 3 months every week, and we are working on technique, breath, alignment, resonance, how to project your voice without sounding like you're yelling, and intention. And
how does one project their voice without sounding like they're angry or yelling?
Yeah, some people yell. Yelling is not projecting. Yelling is just noise. Projecting is when I can give you an example. I'll give you an example. Projecting is when your voice is supported by your breath. So not everybody supports their voices by your breath. Your breath is what comes up from your lungs, goes up your vocal passageway, hits the roof of your mouth, and goes through the vocal folds, captures that vibration that your vocal folds are making, hits the roof of your mouth or your hard palate, and when your mouth is open enough, shoots right out your mouth, right? So you've got all of these here, your chest resonators are vibrating. So that's how you resonate. Also, you're resonating here in your head, in your scalp, and in the bones in your face. And that's how you project. And the breath carries all of that up and out of your mouth. So some people don't use their breath. So some people will talk on kind of like their vocal folds. They will constrict their throat and they will talk like this. This is not talking on your breath. This is pretty much talking on your throat, and you're not using your breath at all. I'm actually holding my breath now while I'm talking. So it's not a very pleasant sound. It's not a very compelling sound to listen to. I hear it a lot.
And then you teach them to just control that breath?
Yeah, we do a lot of breath exercises. We do a ton of breath exercises. Here's the thing about breath. When we're speaking publicly, when you're speaking in front of your microphone, you don't need a lot of breath, right? But you do need breath to sound resonant. You do need breath to sound authentic and compelling. We're not Luciano Pavarotti, right? We're not on stage singing opera. We don't need... People think that when I talk about breath that they need to learn how to fill their lungs. You're not doing Shakespeare. You don't need that. You just need a little bit of breath, and then you need to let your message ride out on that breath and not be constricted by your throat. Does that make sense?
Can you show me an example of what those breath exercises look like?
Yeah, you want me to stand up and do it?
I would like that, yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. So I'm down here. I've got my hands on my knees, and I've got my butt, my behind is stuck out, and I'm letting my belly go. Just letting it go, and I'm just parting my mouth just a little, my lips a little bit. I'll move closer so you can see me a little better. And I'm letting the air come in, and it feels like it's coming into the belly. It's not. It's just coming into the lower lobes of the lungs. And then I go. And we do that about 4 or 5 times. Some people can't do that because they have lip tension. So they might do this.
That's more of what I would do, yeah.
That's lip tension. So then we talk about play. Oh, well, when you were a little kid, I bet you were sitting on the floor playing with your Brio trains or your Matchbox cars and going, it's the same thing. Then we add sound to that. So that is putting the words or the voice on the breath. And that's what we do when we speak. Make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Very cool.
This is only one of many. We could be doing this for hours.
I bet we could. So you've been doing this for 35 years, give or take, correct?
Yep.
What's the single biggest mistake you see people make all the time when it comes to projection and articulating themselves?
I will tell you this. The single biggest mistake that people make is thinking that casual, sloppy speech is authentic. Casual, sloppy speech is not authentic speech. It doesn't tell the truth. It's just sloppy.
Elaborate.
Well, people are afraid to learn how to speak well. A lot of people are afraid to learn how to speak well because they're afraid they will sound artificial. So they're just going to keep talking like this. They're going to keep talking like, like I talk at 7 o'clock in the morning when I haven't had my coffee yet. It's just, it's casual. It's inarticulate. It's not learning how to work the tongue and move the lips and release the jaw and put the voice on the breath. We have been talking since we've been babies, right? We've been making sound and making noise. So we think we know how to speak. And then suddenly we are no wonder people are afraid to do public speaking. Suddenly they're presented with a task. Oh, I want you to do this 5-minute presentation and introduce this very famous man. That's really hard to do if you really don't learn some basic speaking skills because it's scary.
I found not so much, how I speak, but it's more of the topic that I speak on. I can get in front of a crowd of people and I can talk if I know the thing that I'm talking about and I know that I understand the thing that I'm talking about. It's when you get to the point where, say in college, where you're like, hey, do a presentation on the history of frogs or something. And then I'm like, oh, now I have to go up there and, be this confident speaker and tell you about the anatomy, the history, and I'm like, I don't know. And then start stuttering and start, acting all kinds of nervous. And is that a part of it that you found is just confidence in your ability to?
Yeah, you have to be prepared. I know that there are a lot of public speakers who know their material, but they never learn their material. They never memorize it. They're afraid of memorizing it because they're afraid they will sound artificial. But if you truly learn it, if you get that, whatever that is, that dissertation about frogs in your bones, you won't have to worry about anything. It will just fly out of your mouth as if you've been talking about it all your life. And it will be natural, right? I could not sit here and talk to you about any of this if I did not truly know my material, if I didn't truly know what I was talking about and I hadn't talked about it over and over again. I have done speeches before. I have done roles before. You have to learn your material. And for a lot of people, they don't understand that that's what you have to do. You have to really prepare. Mm-hmm. And I worked with a client just recently, a woman who works for a corporation, large corporation, and she's moving up the corporate ladder, and she had to do just 3 minutes. That was all she had to do. And we worked on just that 3 minutes. And I think she was just introducing something or explaining something and then introducing a person. Someone came up to her afterwards and said, wow, I can't believe it. You really had that room. You were working the room. She wasn't able to do that before.
What was the difference?
I think the difference was she was actually talking to people. She wasn't worried about what she was saying, how she was performing. Were people going to think she was dumb? Was she going to forget something? She had the room. She had these people in her arms. She was, figuratively speaking, she was including them all. She was making eye contact with so many of them. She genuinely showed that she was glad they were there. It's a gift for them. It's never about us.
So what I'm getting out of that, it's less about what you're saying, it's less about how you're saying it, and it's more about how the audience receives the message.
Well, it's very important what you're saying. And it's important that the audience receives it. But the audience often cannot receive it if they cannot understand you, if they cannot hear you, or if you don't mean what you say, if you seem like you don't care what you say, what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. If you sound like you don't care, they're not going to listen to you. They're looking at their watches and going to go take a little coffee break, and maybe they'll go to the bathroom and then they'll check back in. But if you are filled with joy. Joy, even when you're talking about something that is sad, there is an element of joy, not in the sad thing that you're talking about, but that you have triumphed over it and that you are offering these people the opportunity to do the same thing, the opportunity to triumph over sad. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, lots of ways to do that. I can tell you some ways, other ways besides breath. You want to see another exercise?
I'd like to, yeah.
This would be very good for you. Be good. It's good for everybody. So before you start anything, before you start to speak, if you just take your tongue and drape it over your lower lip. Let me look at you. I can't see. Yeah. So not stick it out, but drape it like it's a really lazy tongue. And then with your mind, a lazy tongue, and with your mind, you're saying, tongue, be free. And what you're, with your mind, not with your tongue.
Sorry.
And what I want you to do is actively release the muscles in the sides of the tongue. Because you see, the tongue is a huge muscle. It's under here. It's under our throat. It's under our chin. It runs down the sides of our throats. And when that tongue is tense, we are tense. Our articulation is not clear. But when we release the tongue, we sit around like this for 30 seconds or a minute. And then maybe we do a little bit of a speak like this. For a muse of fire that will ascend the brightest heaven of invention. You put your tongue back in and you do the same thing. Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. Suddenly you're speaking more clearly. And that passageway is a little more open because the tongue has been released. It's magic. But you have to practice it every day.
I kind of feel it already, but I'm sure I can get better.
One of many things that I work with speakers on. The other thing we talk about is meaning what you say. Onomatopoeia. People do you remember what onomatopoeia means?
Remind me.
Onomatopoeia is when the word sounds like what it means. So bang or splash or whoosh, right? Those kinds of words. But every word has the potential for onomatopoeia. Every word. So if you think about that, you think about the important words in your message, think about the important words and infuse those words with what you mean. Then people are going to listen. You want people to listen.
And that goes into like capturing the room, as you said before.
Yeah. So especially when you're telling a story. Or even more when you have, I'm working with somebody right now who he has to deliver a very, very dry presentation. And I said, do you want people to get up and leave? I said, you need to tell them a story. You need to make them feel compassion about this problem that you're trying to solve. So now we are talking about infusing story into what we're, into our speeches, into our presentations. And we all have stories to tell.
Sometimes I always question if this is a natural gift that people have or it's something that they can actually learn how to control and convey.
There are a few people who have this natural gift. There are many, many people who don't have the natural gift, but have the ability to learn it and learn it fairly quickly. And then, I've come across one or two who just don't have it. They just can't, or they won't. I have worked with clients that won't, too, that won't.
Is that a mental block more than anything?
Yeah, well, you know what I think it is, Chris, is fear. It was this person I was working with had been referred to me. They had a friend that referred them to me, and because they were losing their voice. And this work was to help. They just didn't want to do the work. They didn't want to spend the time. They started telling me I needed to shorten my lessons. They felt funny. I could see that the person felt very awkward doing some of the exercises. They're just silly exercises. They're designed to let the voice come up and be free. So often what happens, Chris, is as we're growing up and we're growing older, people are telling us in a variety of ways to tamp down who we truly are. The voice is the fundamental expression of who we are. And so, you might grow up with somebody saying, shut up, you're too loud, you've got a big mouth, move out of the way, get out, I don't want to hear it. A lot of people grow up that way. And so what they do is they tamp down their sound, or they don't open their mouths. And so they have to understand that they have to get rid of these habits so that the voice will come up and down.
Let's say you have a big meeting or a big presentation. How do you prepare your voice for that?
Well, first of all, practice. I'm working with a lot of clients right now who are in various stages of prepping for big presentations. And so they practice. I had one client who just didn't want to practice. She said, I feel so inauthentic when I rehearse, when I practice. I hate watching myself practice. I said,
Me too.
You don't have to watch yourself. You just have to practice. Just practice and get used to doing this over and over again. She was brilliant at this huge presentation. She knocked speaker agents' socks off. She was so good because she had practiced. Then right before she did her presentation, she went somewhere into a private room, as I encourage everyone to do, and do their 5 or 10 or 15-minute warm-up. Every day, people should be doing 5 minutes a day, minimum 5 minutes a day. They don't have to do a half an hour. They're not actors. They're not, going on stage to perform every night. But 5 minutes a day is going to make a difference.
And these include like the tongue exercises, like the leaned over, bent over, just stuff like that, just to kind of get everything loose. And I also feel like it's like a stress reliever too, because it's kind of silly too, right?
Oh, so it's so silly. Yes. Well, yes, and I have several silly things that I do that will really relieve the tension. There is one thing that really relieves the tension I'm going to tell you about. When a speaker is nervous, and I talk to all my speakers about this, you've heard the expression tight ass, right? Well, tight ass, it's somebody who's really uptight. It's somebody who's tense. Well, it comes from the fact that when we are tense, we often pull up on that anal sphincter. When we release the anal sphincter, then we are a lot more free to speak. It has a huge difference in the way we sound. And Pavarotti apparently used to say to his masterclass students, use your bathroom muscles. And what he would, when they were, singing opera, and what you're really doing is by releasing that anal sphincter, you are activating the diaphragm. So we're just doing that a little bit for speaking. We don't need to do that a lot for opera, but that's really what we're doing. And it's very effective. I can tell you that from personal experience. Works good.
I have never heard anyone say that before. That's a new thing to me.
No, I know. It's my favorite. It's my favorite thing to talk about. One other thing that people can do before a larger meeting, and I happen to have with me my handy dandy straw and a glass. I just happen to have this here because I usually have water when I talk. This is a wonderful warm-up, and particularly when you're sick. These public speakers are hopping on one plane, and then they go to one place, and then 2 days later they're on a plane, and they go to another place, and they often get sick, or they're experiencing, hoarseness or exhaustion. So you take this straw, and you put it in a glass of water, and you do the thing that your mother never let you do at the table. Blow. For a long time, until you cannot blow, until you need to take another breath. And you do it again. This is called straw therapy. If you can't remember how to do it, it is all over the internet. Speakers use it, singers use it, and I encourage my speakers to use it, especially when they're sick. And the other thing you can do is you can hum while you do it. It works great.
I can understand why. I feel like you're just clearing out the lungs, the throat, everything, just getting everything ready to go.
Yep. That's all we're doing.
Let's say I go to a business conference and I'm face to face in the same room with somebody very important that could help me advance my career. I only have one chance to introduce myself and only a few seconds to really make a good impression. What do I do?
You need an elevator speech.
What's an elevator speech?
An elevator speech is the time that to tell somebody about who you are in the time it takes to ride the elevator with them. So you actually have that prepared in advance. And it's tricky. I mean, people will say to me, well, what do you do? And I've pretty much gotten it down to, I teach people how to talk good. And then I look at them and wait for them to ask me more questions. But you really want to decide what it is you want people to know about yourself, and you want to winnow it down to something that's really interesting, but also really helpful to them. That's something that will help them understand who you are and what you can do for them. And then you remember it, and you remember it by memorizing it. That's what you do. It's called preparation.
I was going to say, in this situation, if you know who you're about to talk to, you got to look at, like, what is it that they might need the most, and align yourself and say, hey, like, this is what I can do for you, and really have it, like, as you said, practice, like, articulate it, act like you're talking to the person in the mirror.
Yeah. You know, Chris, lately I have been recommending to some of my clients who work with me one-on-one, with, private sessions, go take an improv class. You take an improv class with a bunch of people and you get real stupid and you do crazy things and you laugh with one another. And suddenly you're learning how to be free, also how to think on your feet, which is really a valuable skill. So that you have your elevator speech, but somebody comes up to you and you can easily align yourself because you've had this experience of learning how to respond in the moment. So you're prepared, but you can also respond in the moment.
I think that would be highly beneficial for me. I write down a lot of the things I want to say. I'm relatively prepared, but sometimes it's stuff like that I think I could work on. And that's actually a really good idea.
It's so fun. It is so much fun. In fact, there is a place right down the street from me, and they offer improv classes, and I walk by it every day, and I think, I wonder who's teaching that class. Wonder what's going on in there. I feel like I've said it so many times to clients lately that I feel like I need to go down and do it myself. We can all benefit from it.
What do you think the best speakers in the world do that average speakers don't?
I think they practice. Barack Obama doesn't sound the way he sounds just on the fly. He just sounds like he's talking on the fly because he's so good. They practice. I also have good speech writers. And there are many of my clients who do have speech writers, but they practice, Chris. They practice. I think Barack Obama, I think he's the best speaker that I have heard. I also have another guy who's my favorite. He's not nearly as well known as Barack Obama, but he's an excellent public speaker. Barack Obama is wonderful because he can code switch. And you know what that is, right?
Is that like different tones, like going from one tone to another tone?
Well, you do go from one tone to another tone, but it really is like when he's in front of, like when he went into that church to the grieving people in where was that, Charleston, when all those people were assassinated. He was talking like those people. He was talking like they were his people. But when he's in front of the country and the world, he's speaking in a more formal tone. I do it all the time with my college, when I was teaching my college students. I did it with my little kids when they were little. When I wasn't swearing, I am a notorious swearer. I have been very well behaved on this podcast, but I would never swear in front of them. But I could go back to my university classes and swear like a sailor. In fact, I taught my university students how to swear well.
How do you swear well?
You articulate and you mean what you say. There is nothing finer than a well-placed F-bomb. Nothing finer. Here in South Philadelphia, people bandy it about all the time, the F word. And it's just, it's like, oh, come on. Like, use it like you really mean it. They just say it for everything.
Maybe it's a lack of vocabulary. I don't know.
I think it could be.
So how does all of this apply to podcast and content creators specifically?
I've worked with a couple podcasters, and I worked specifically with a content creator on, same basic things: breath, resonance, articulation. You want people to understand you, and you want people to want to listen to you. I have turned off plenty of podcasts because I don't like listening to them. The content creator I worked with specifically, and this would be of interest to more and more podcasters who are now video recording as well. The face is really important in expressing what it is we're saying. There are plenty of people who are articulating well, but they do not use their face to express themselves. You can actually hear people You can close your eyes, but you can hear people's faces. If you close your eyes, you can hear the tone in their voice. What you do with your body and your breath and your face and your eyebrows and your nose, all of those things are really important, but people don't think about it. When I work with some clients, I use a deck of cards to get them to open up their faces. And what I do is I will hold up a card and I will have them mimic that face. Or maybe it's this face.
Very nice.
Yes, there you go. Or maybe it's this face. So, yeah.
This is fun.
I have many more of these cards. So anyway, those are the kinds of things we work on. And that's what I worked on with my content creator in particular. She's very good. I have people do facial calisthenics.
Facial calisthenics?
Yeah. Raise your eyebrows, lower them, raise them, lower them, raise one, then the other, then the other, then the other. Wrinkle your nose. Lift your cheeks. Just the cheeks. And then lift your lips. Your upper lip, like, you dog. All of these things. All of these things are very helpful in waking up that face. Yeah. And what you're doing right now? That is called gurning.
Gurning.
Gurning. It's actually something that they do, and I don't know if they still do it. They were doing it as recently as a few years ago in rural England. They have gurning contests, and people win awards for the weirdest faces.
Where can I get this deck of cards? I need that to practice with.
Oh, I will send you a deck of cards. This actually is a little invention by my husband, who wrote a book called The Savvy Singing Actor. And he started using these cards. Well, actually, he made this sort of janky deck of cards to work with his students 30 years ago. And then eventually we had them all printed up. I'll send you a deck of cards.
All right, I guess next we can talk about myths. Some common myths about public speaking. You either have it or you don't. True or false?
Myth. False.
Myth. Just picture the audience in your underwear.
Oh, for God's sake. No.
So where do you think that myth came from?
I just have no idea. We should ask AI. Where does that myth come from? Because it certainly doesn't work. What will work is preparation and technique. Then you won't be afraid. Or you might be afraid, but you'll know you can do the job.
I'm going to ask AI right now. All right, so according to Claude, this advice for public speaking anxiety has murky origins, but a few threads come together. It's often traced to general self-help and psychology writing from the mid-20th century, though no one has pinned down a definitive first source. Some attribute a version of it to Mark Twain or Dale Carnegie, but neither has been reliably confirmed as the originator. These are likely misattributions common with old advice. Or it could be core logic is a cognitive distraction / reframing technique. I like this description. It's a reframing technique, shifted focus from the audience is judging me to something absurd, which is meant to lower perceived threat and break the spiral of self-consciousness. In summary, you're not thinking about how nervous you are to talk to somebody, and you're thinking about something just crazy.
Yeah, I find it pretty ineffective. But if it works, you do.
If it works for you, it works for you, right? Speak slower when you're nervous.
This is like telling somebody to drive with the parking brake on. Some people do need to speak slower, but there are way better ways to achieve it. What happens is then when you tell someone to talk slower, then they're hyper-focused on talking very slowly. How slow is too slow? Should I speed up a little bit? But that's not the way to approach it. There are several ways to approach it. One of them is a released tongue, believe it or not, that can actually slow your speech down. I don't know why, it just happens. Another way is really understanding that you have to, what a lot of people will do is when they get to a sentence or a thought, They start with the first word and then they end it with the last word, and they leapfrog over all these wonderful thoughts and ideas and words without articulating each one of them. Each of them is really important. That in itself, when you really mean what you say, that's going to slow your roll.
And it all goes back to the very beginning. Mean what you say, and the rest of it follows. What's the worst advice about public speaking that you have heard?
I think it's not rehearsing. I've had a few people, and I'm working with a client right now who has been told he doesn't need to rehearse because he'll sound phony. And I said, nah, you're going to, once you learn your speech, once you learn your script, you're going to be able to, it's your roadmap. And you're going to stay on your roadmap, and it'll get you to the end. It'll get you to your destination. But if you don't learn your script, what happens for many people is they go off on all of these tangents, and they're very hard for the audience to follow them, right? They've gone somewhere else.
I've seen that so much. Even on here, I have to just cut down 20 minutes into 5 minutes because I'm like, all right, we started here. We talked about something that happened 20 years ago, and now we're at the end of the question. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that drives me crazy. And that's one of the things that made me almost want to do an episode on this. I'm like, what's the important things that we need to learn about speaking and how we articulate?
I will preach. I will always preach. Learn your script. Learn your script. And there are a few public speakers and there are also a few trainers who say, no, you can't do that. You'll just sound too phony. I've been in this for too long. I can tell you that does not work. You got to learn it. You learn it, and then you deliver it with heart. And I also show you how to deliver it with heart. I'm not going to let you sound like a dope.
What do you think is the hardest audience you've ever coached?
The hardest audience, I mean the hardest client I've ever had?
Sure, anyone.
I guess it was that person who wanted me to make my lessons a lot shorter because they couldn't concentrate. They just couldn't concentrate. They thought they already knew what they were doing. And in fact, apparently whatever they're doing is working for them. But that was very hard. Every week I'd think, oh my God, I have to meet with this person again. They didn't want, they didn't want it. I think that was it. I love teaching and I love coaching. And I think my clients and my students know that. I did teach a class at Drexel University for several years after I left the University of the Arts. Drexel University is filled with mathematicians and scientists and, pre-med students and astrophysicists, and they all came to my class, and they were all very quiet. And I thought, well, this is weird. I can't get them to speak. But I was having them, do the vowel ladder and roll on the floor and make big sound, and they were doing it, but then they were just very quiet in class when they weren't making sound. Wow. And after about 8 weeks, I said, well, we are nearly to the end of your quarter. Tell me what was beneficial. And one young man who never spoke in my class said, I realized that in my other classes, I'm so aware of what comes out of my mouth now. I never paid attention to it before. And since he said that, it was always so much easier for me to go in and teach those students at Drexel because I knew they were getting a lot from that class, but I just didn't feel a lot coming back.
My mom went to Drexel, so she is one of those people, and she's very quiet. She's got a different kind of brain, I guess. It's not that kind of personality.
They had very different brains. It was crowded, and yet they were all there. They were studying voice and speech. They were studying acting. They took a cabaret class because they wanted to do it. They wanted to know what that felt like. They wanted to have that experience. And when you can do that, and I think about one young woman who I said, we were just chatting one day, and I said, well, what is it that you do? She said, I'm an astrophysicist. I'm studying to be an astrophysicist. I said, what does that mean? She said, I'm going to go to the moon and I'm going to start the first settlement there because we are totally trashing our world. And I thought, oh my gosh, I get to work with these people. And
is that the astronaut that we mentioned earlier?
No, I really did work with an astronaut. That was exciting. No, she was a student. She was an astronaut to be. No, I worked with an astronaut, And I was a little cowed. I don't like to know about my clients ahead of time because if I know about them, then I can't maybe sort of be as silly as I want to be. But I knew he was an astronaut, and I thought, oh, well, I got to teach him the vowel ladder. Would you like me to show you the vowel ladder?
Yes.
Do we have time for that?
We do. We have all the time.
Here's the vowel ladder, and this is what I was teaching my astronaut. Zoo, wood, whoa, shaw, ga, ma, fa, her, ba, de, pe, ki, bree. That's 15 vowels, and we use them in our everyday speech. So I did that crazy thing, and I had to stop him from making such a big fuss because I said to him, Steve, you've been to space. I'm just showing you a silly exercise. He was all about it. He loved it.
Let's pivot because I'm still curious about the actual astronaut that you worked with. So who was that, and what did they have to be prepared for?
His name is Steve Smith. He is no longer an astronaut. I mean, I guess he's a retired astronaut. And now he speaks to large groups. He speaks to groups of, maybe 5,000 people. And I guess he talks about space. I don't really know. I haven't seen him for a few years, so I don't really know. But it was lovely working with him. It really was.
Yeah, that's a really awesome thing.
It was pretty awesome.
Have you ever bombed any type of speech yourself?
Bombed public speaking because I can always get back on track. But I have bombed an audition before. It was mortifying. It was hard. It was mortifying. And you just kind of have to move on. And I've heard people bomb before. There is that clip of that lovely young woman who was Miss South Carolina? Was that who she was? That was a real gaffe for her.
I actually have that right now if you want to take a second to just watch it.
Yeah, sure. Let's look at it.
Okay. Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future for our children.
Thank you very much.
What went wrong? A lot of things, right?
Yeah, first of all, I think those girls are under an enormous amount of pressure.
Absolutely.
What they have to do is nothing short of athletic in terms of not just physical stuff, but preparing yourself mentally and emotionally. She wasn't prepared. And somebody told her something. Somebody told her, you have to sound like you understand the world. You have to understand, they probably said a bunch of buzzwords to her, and she just was pulling stuff out of her head. It was terrible. It was really awful. And it's a hard thing to overcome.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you overcome something like that? Something as crazy as that?
No, that was pretty crazy when I saw that. That was pretty crazy. You just move on. And then maybe it takes 20 years. How did Monica Lewinsky overcome what she had to bear when the whole thing with Bill Clinton came out, that she'd had that affair with Bill Clinton? And now look at her. She's okay and she's thriving, but it probably took her a very long time. So this young girl will be, if she isn't already, she'll be okay. She'll be all right. But that's tough. That's a tough thing to overcome.
Is there anything that you wish you would have known at the start of your career that you know now?
I wish I had known it was okay to be truly me, that it was okay to be me. I really thought I had to be somebody better than me. And it took me a long time to learn, I'm good enough. I'm enough. And I think that it hindered my voice. And once I accepted myself, then I could truly be who I was. I also think I wish I had learned earlier that I was meant to teach. I'm a far better teacher than I am an actor. And that was how I started. I started out as an actor. That was actually how I met my husband.
Wow. A few people on this show have started off as actors and then found their love somewhere else. I always hear that, in order to be truly an expert in your field, you need to be able to teach exactly what it is that you know. And until you can do that, you're not really an expert.
Yeah, I think that's really true. That whole adage about if you can't do, teach, that's hooey.
Yeah,
You really have. Yeah.
What's one thing somebody can do today to immediately sound more confident?
Stand up straight. It's true. You will sound more confident and you will look more confident. When we're aligned, when we're standing up straight, we've actually just lifted our kind of like our ribs up off our guts. And that's given more space to our lungs to take in some breath. It also, it also makes it easier for people to relate to us when we're standing up straight and we have our sternum open or our heart chakra open rather than this.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? It is true.
And that's big body language thing, right? So you could be saying the same thing in this position and then saying the same thing in this position, and it's going to have a completely different meaning to it. You could sound like interested and intent, or I'm here.
Yeah, or casual and maybe not so present. Yeah.
One thing that I haven't heard you say that I'm surprised you haven't touched on is the fact of, how your audience really takes your message. It says a lot about how interesting you are. How interested you make them feel is how interesting you are. You can be interesting by being interested in other people, right? And a lot of that has to do with body language and etc.
It also has to do with, again, it's when you are interested, when you care about your audience, they're grateful and they're going to listen to you. So if you have a message that you want to give to your audience, then you give it fully and you're vulnerable. You're not afraid. You're not, you they're not going to judge you. They're there to accept you. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It is really such a gift. What you are doing is a gift. And that is so nice. It's nice for us who get to hear you, and it's nice for you.
So I get to learn a lot.
Yeah,
if
you
nothing
do.
else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If voice is your superpower, what is your kryptonite?
Fear.
But isn't that the one thing that's holding us back? Like you said?
It gets me every time. Fear will get me every time.
How do we overcome that?
A couple things. I mean, like I said, if you're on stage, you just bear down on that anal sphincter. You let go of that anal sphincter, and that will actually ground you. It's one way to alleviate, performance fear or stage fright. I think meditation, and I think, I have a gratitude journal, and it really keeps me focused and grounded. And if I don't use it, I lose it. I start, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of lots of stuff.
Like what?
Well, I'm afraid of all this technology. This tech thing and losing the mic, and do we have the right mic? And that just makes me anxious all the time. When I work a lot with clients on Zoom, and I have my Zoom set up and I have to have it just so. And when I lose it, just a basket case, because I don't want to let my client down.
So fear of failure in a way, right?
Fear of failure. Yeah, fear of failure. Yes. I think that's really it.
Well, for what it's worth, I really feel like, what's the worst that could happen? I've said this before. What's the worst it could happen from failing, right? You look dumb to somebody. You lose money if you're in a business and it fails. What do? You get up and you can just try again. You
just do it again. Look how many people do that over and over, and they eventually thrive. Yeah.
I really think that's the superpower that, I strive for is I failed a lot, I just keep going. I've pivoted my career a lot. I just keep trying. If a video flops and no one watches it, to post another one,
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the big things that people really need to learn. I mean, this has nothing to do with speaking, but It's just to be persistent, to be present, just keep going, even when it's
And
hard.
you are persistent. I was so grateful to you for that. I loved that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That got you here right now, right? That's
Yeah,
me being persistent.
That's right. And I really wasn't putting you off. I just thought, I think there's somebody else out there who can probably be of greater benefit. Because I'm always happy to talk about this. I said that to you. I'm very happy to do this. I just don't know.
Well, Darcy, any closing thoughts?
Speak with your whole heart and just let it all out. And if you can't do that, get some training and call me. And it's been so nice to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to talk to you as well. For anybody that's interested in your services, I know you're not a big social media person, so you don't really use social media. But if people are interested in using your services, where can they find you?
DarcyWebb.com, DarcyWebb.com. And you can read my blogs and you can see a couple videos. Also, there are some things up on Instagram that they are actually helpful. I used to do something called Tuesday morning 2-minute tune-ups for the tongue. And
I'd watch that every Tuesday. That's just me.
they're pretty funny. So they're on Instagram.
I'll make sure to link everything in the description. I'll even tag some of your tongue twister Tuesdays, and I'll repost them on the From Those Who Know channel as well, just for fun.
Great. It'd be great. Here's my closing tongue twister for you.
Okay.
Peculiarly brilliant Italian William.
Peculiarly brilliant Italian. You got me.
William.
William. Oh, man. Darcy, thank you so much.
Chris, thank you.
Another day of getting healthier, wealthier, and wiser with Darcy Webb. Everyone, take care. Thanks for listening.